This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
In the headlines, first, U.S. President Donald Trump says interim authorities in Venezuela will immediately turn over millions of barrels of oil after Maduro's U.S. capture. China blasts U.S. actions against Venezuela, accusing Washington of violating international law, undermining national sovereignty, and escalating global tensions. President Trump's renewed interest in Greenland triggers European unity, with leaders reaffirming the Arctic territory's sovereignty. In Syria, heavy gunfire in Aleppo forces residents to flee as Syrian Transitional Government Forces and the Syrian Democratic Forces exchange blame for deadly attacks. Back to the Philippines, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. calls on newly promoted AFP generals and flag officers to lead with integrity and responsibly manage public resources. The AFP responds to former Ilocos Sur Governor Chavez Singson, stressing it will remain loyal to the Constitution despite allegations of government corruption. In South Korea, a Brazilian woman is arrested in Seoul after allegedly stalking BTS member Jungkook at his home in a case under investigation for violations of South Korea's anti-stalking law. I'm Angel Pastor. Newsline World starts now. First in our news, U.S. President Donald Trump says interim authorities in Venezuela will immediately turn over tens of millions of barrels of oil to the United States following the capture of President Nicolas Maduro during a U.S. military operation. Jane Codnita has more.
Trump said between 30 and 50 million barrels of what he described as high-quality Venezuelan oil will be handed over to the U.S. government. He said the oil will be sold at market price with proceeds controlled by Washington. Trump claimed the funds will be used to benefit both Venezuela and the United States. The oil will be shipped directly to U.S. ports using storage vessels. Energy Secretary Chris Wright has been ordered to execute the plan immediately. The United States will temporarily run Caracas until what Trump calls a safe political transition takes place. He warned of a larger military response if instability continues. Venezuela holds the world's largest proven oil reserves, estimated at more than 300 billion barrels. Production has fallen sharply in recent years due to internal mismanagement and international pressure. The announcement triggered protests in Brazil, where demonstrators gathered outside the U.S. consulate in Sao Paulo. Protesters accused Washington of imperialism and of attempting to seize Venezuela's oil wealth. Some burned American flags and carried effigies of President Trump.
E não tem vergonha na cara! Não disfarça mais os interesses do imperialismo! Não disfarça mais que o imperialismo está, na verdade, em decadência! E por isso está disposto a fazer tudo para poder garantir os altos lucros dos empresários, para garantir os interesses da grande burguesia internacional e para roubar hoje as riquezas e o petróleo da Venezuela, mas se prepara para poder roubar todos os países da América Latina e do mundo.
The protests follow a large-scale U.S. military operation targeting Venezuelan military bases and communications hubs. U.S. officials said more than 150 aircraft were involved, with at least 80 fatalities reported. Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores, captured by U.S. forces, are now detained in New York awaiting trial. Maduro pleaded not guilty to drug charges, with his next court hearing set at March 17th. The operation has also drawn condemnation from several Latin American governments, as well as Russia and China, while European leaders have called for respect for international law. This has been Jane Codnita, Global Citizen Correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Venezuela appoints 3 prosecutors to investigate civilian and military casualties reportedly caused by recent U.S. military strikes that led to the capture of President Nicolas Maduro. This report.
Venezuela's Attorney General Tariq William Saab announced an investigation into the casualties caused by U.S. military strikes against the country. During the installation of the new leadership of the National Assembly, Saab provided the details of the probe, calling America's actions a war crime.
Que nosotros hemos designado como Ministerio Público a 3 fiscales para investigar las decenas de bajas inocentes, civiles y militares ocurridas en medio de este crimen de guerra, de esta agresión inusitada contra la patria venezolana.
He stressed that Venezuela has not faced a foreign military aggression of comparable scale in more than 200 years. Saab called on all branches of government, including the judiciary, electoral authorities, popular power, and the military, to unite in denouncing the attacks before the international community. He also reaffirmed support for Delcy Rodriguez as acting president and George Rodriguez as head of the National Assembly for the 2026 to 2031 term. Caracas and the rest of Venezuela is still under a national state of emergency, accusing Washington of attempting to seize the country's strategic resources, particularly oil and minerals. The United States has not acknowledged responsibility for the civilian casualties. U.S. President Donald Trump has said Washington would take control of Venezuela's oil sector and warned Venezuelan leaders of consequences if they did not cooperate. Meanwhile, Saab said Venezuela would prevail despite what he described as unprecedented affront to its sovereignty and pledged to ensure justice for the victims of the strikes.
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump's renewed interest in Greenland has triggered European unity, with leaders reaffirming the Arctic territory's sovereignty. Paul Montebon tells us more.
South European leaders released a joint statement reaffirming that Greenland belongs to its people and that decisions regarding the territory must be made only by Denmark and Greenland. They emphasized that Greenland, as part of the Kingdom of Denmark, falls under NATO's collective defense framework and that security must be built with allies, including the United States, through international law. The statement also stressed that Kingdom of Denmark, including Greenland, is part of NATO and that Arctic security must be achieved collectively with NATO allies, including the United States, in line with the UN Charter and the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity. While calling the United States as a central partner, the leaders referenced the 1915 defense agreement between Denmark and the US. This statement was released by Denmark's Prime Minister's office and signed by Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry, appointed last month as U.S. Special Envoy to Greenland, said President Donald Trump supports an independent Greenland with economic ties to the United States. The White House, meanwhile, said utilizing the U.S. military is always an option. Since returning to office in January 2025, Trump has repeatedly expressed interest in gaining control of the territory, saying he would not rule out military or economic coercion. Greenland, a former Danish colony, became part of the Kingdom of Denmark in 1953 and was granted home rule in 1979. The island is known to have large quantities of critical minerals and oil. The United States maintains a military base on the island. Trump insists the U.S. absolutely needs Greenland.
We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And Denmark is not going to be able to do it, I can tell you.
Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen condemned Trump's remarks as unacceptable, warning that sovereignty of NATO members cannot be challenged. She said both Denmark and Greenland have repeatedly rejected any idea of Greenland becoming part of the United States and stressed that Greenlanders alone must decide their future. Asked about the implications of force being used against a NATO ally, Fredriksen said that in such a scenario, everything stops. Greenland remains open to dialogue with Washington, but stressed that talks must take place through proper channels and in respect of international law, adding that Greenland is not an object of great power rhetoric. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, reporting for Newsline World, this has been Paul Montemon, SMNI News.
Up next, China blasts U.S. actions against Venezuela, accusing Washington of violating international law, undermining national sovereignty, and escalating global tensions. In Syria, heavy gunfire in Aleppo forces residents to flee as Syrian Transitional Government Forces and the Syrian Democratic Forces exchange blame for deadly attacks. More news when Newsline World returns.
Sa kabila ng mga mas modernong kaalaman at teknolohiya, nananatiling matindi ang banta ng HIV sa Pilipinas. Pero gaano nga ba kalala ang sitwasyon? Ang HIV o Human Immunodeficiency Virus ay isang sakit na sumisira sa immune system ng katawan. Ngunit tandaan, hindi ito nakukuha sa simpleng pakikisalamuha. Hindi mo agad mararamdaman, pero unti-unti nitong pinapahina ang katawan. At kapag hindi naagapan, humahantong ito sa AIDS, ang huling yugto na impeksyon, kung saan halos wala ng panlaban ng katawan laban sa sakit. Patuloy na dumadami ang kaso ng sakit na ito sa Pilipinas. Isang nakababahalang pagtaas. Umabot na sa 500% ang itinaas ng HIV cases sa mga kabataang edad 15 hanggang 25. Ayon mismo sa Department of Health, 56 na bagong kaso ang naitatala kada araw sa bansa mula Enero hanggang Marso 2025. At ang pinakamatinding apektado, ang kalalakihan at kabataang Pilipino. Dahil dito, ang Pilipinas na ngayon ang may pinakamataas na bilang ng bagong kaso ng HIV sa buong Western Pacific region. Isang indikasyon ng lumulubahang sitwasyon. Kaya nananawagan ng Department of Health gawing opisyal at urgent ang laban sa HIV sa pamamagitan ng isang Public Health Emergency Declaration. Kalalakihan ng pangunahing apektado, 95% ng bagong kaso ay lalaki. Mahigit 1/4 ay kabataang nasa edad 15 hanggang 24. Habang wala pang deklarasyon, patuloy ang DOH sa mga sumusunod na hakbang: HIV testing, libreng gamot, self-test kits, at pakikipagtulungan sa DepEd para sa edukasyon sa mga paaralan. Isinulong rin ng DOH ang online patient appointment system para sa HIV patients. Layunin nitong gawing mas madali at mas personal ang pag-access sa libreng gamutan at konsultasyon ayon sa schedule ng pasyente. Ang HIV ay hindi tulad ng flu. Hindi ito basta naipapasa sa hangin. Ito ay naipapasa sa pamamagitan ng personal na desisyon. Kailangan din nating pagtuunan ng pansin ang ugali, disiplina, at personal na responsibilidad. Isang paalala mula sa SMNI.
Isang pindot lang, pwede kang maka-jackpot. Mukhang masaya at easy money lang. Sa murang halaga, pwede ka na tumaya sa online gambling at e-casino apps. Mayroong sabong, slot machines, mahjong, poker at iba pa. Kailangan mo lang ng smartphone, e-wallet at internet. Pero ang aliw na ito, unti-unting nagiging bitag para sa mga Pilipino. Lalo na kung ang paborito mong artista o influencer ang mukha ng app. Mas madaling makaengganyo, diba? Parang safe naman kasi may kilalang mukha. Pero sa likod ng ngiti, sugal pa rin ang itinutulak. At syempre, mas madali ring itago ang pagkatapos pagkalulong sa bisyong ito. Walang pisikal na kasino o pasugalan, walang kaharap, walang accountability, kaya't mas lumalala ang adiksyon. Dagdag pa rito, maraming online gambling apps at walang regulasyon. Sa likod ng mga makukulay na interface at papremyo, nakatago ang problemang bumabalot ngayon sa bansa. Ang pagkalulong ng maraming Pilipino sa online gambling. Pwede maglaro kahit saan, kahit kailan, kahit sino, bata man o matanda, pwedeng malulong. Ayon sa mga eksperto, ang pagkakalulong sa online gambling ay nagdudulot ng matinding stress at anxiety, pagkakabaon sa utang, pagkawasak ng pamilya, pagkawala ng tiwala sa sarili. At tulad ng ibang bisyo, may mga senyales ito tulad ng hindi makapagpigil kahit walang pera, palihim na tumataya, pagpapabaya sa trabaho, pamilya o sarili. Sa bawat taya, may mga taong tunay na kumikita, mga malalaking negosyante at investors na negosyo ang bisyo ng masa. Para sa kanila, perang pumapasok lang ito, pero para sa ordinaryong Pilipino, kabuhayan at relasyon ang nauubos. At ang masakit, tila matagal itong nahayaan. Hindi ito naging prioridad ng mga nakaupo sa taas hanggang sa sobrang lumala at halos naapektuhan na ang buong komunidad. Ngayon, sa dami ng nalulung at sa laki ng pinsalang naidulot, sa kapalalong umugong ang mga panukalang batas para higpitan ng online gambling, gaya ng pagbabawal sa paggamit ng e-wallets para tumaya, pagtaas ng minimum bet, mas mahigpit na identity verification, pag-block ng mga illegal na gambling sites, at bawasan o ipagbawal ang mga ads na target ang kabataan. Maaari itong magmukhang laro lang, pero sa katotohanan, isa itong sugal sa kinabukasan. Ang kita na dapat sa mga pangunahing pangangailangan o ipon na uubos sa sugal. At sa mundo ng online gambling, mas madali kang matalo kaysa manalo. Huwag hayaang sugal ang magdikta sa iyong buhay. Isang paalala mula sa SM9.
Hoy, magnanakaw! Tingnan! Pulis ka!
Hala, magnanakaw!
Magnanakaw! Magnanakaw!
Hoy, magnanakaw!
Magnanakaw! Magnanakaw!
Ano kayang gagawin ko? Ipamimigay ko yung konti para tumigil sila sa pag-iingay.
Pare, magnanakaw, namimigay ng pera.
Eto ang sayo.
Wow! Ang bait ng magnanakaw!
Eto naman sayo.
Kuya, yung share
eto
ko! Sana
Huwag ka nang maingay. Eto pa. Tama na yan. Nakikipalato lang kayo eh. Huwag nang maingay. Diba? Konti lang pinamigay ko, mabait na ako. Tahimik na sila, easy. Ngayon, pwede ko na tong suluhin.
Masaya ang mga tao, pero tama po ba ito? Di po ba ang nakikinabang sa magnanakaw ay kasabwat ng magnanakaw?
Ikaw, kinukonsenti mo ba ang legal na korupsyon?
We're back in the face of rising global security challenges, including tensions in Venezuela and the Indo-Pacific. Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi emphasizes citizen safety, diplomacy with China, and preparedness for emerging threats. Guy Saito has the story.
Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi has pledged to prioritize the safety of Japanese nationals amid the ongoing crisis in Venezuela, while reaffirming her government's commitment to restoring democracy in the South American nation.
での事案を受けまして、日本政府としては、私の指示のもと、まずは法人の安全確保、これを最優先にし、関係国と緊密に連携して対応に当たっております。でベネズエラ情勢につきましては、日本政府としまして、これまでも一刻も早くベネズエラにおける民主主義が回復されることの重要性を訴えてまいりました。で我が国は従来から自由、民主主義、法の支配、といった基本的価値や、原則を尊重してまいりました。
Takeichi also addressed Japan's relations with China, reaffirming her commitment to a constructive and stable strategic partnership while noting ongoing challenges and the importance of continued communication.
中国、でございますが、中国との間では、戦略的互恵関係を包括的に推進し、建設的かつ安定的な関係を構築していくという方針は、私の総理、就任以来、一貫しております。その上で日中間に、これまでもでしたけれども、さまざまな懸案と課題、意思疎通が重要です。我が国としては中国とのさまざまな対話について、オープンでございます。扉を閉ざすようなことはしておりません。このような姿勢の下で中国側と、意思疎通を継続しながら、今後も国益の観点から適切に対応を行ってまいります。
She further highlighted evolving security threats in the Indo-Pacific region, citing increased military capabilities of China and North Korea, strengthened ties between China and Russia, and the global implications of Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
随分大きな変化が起きています。法の支配に基づく自由で開かれた国際秩序への挑戦が勢いを増している。ということとともに、インド太平洋では中国、北朝鮮のさらなる軍事力の増強、そして中国、ロシア、北朝鮮の連携強化、などが見られております。
The Prime Minister said Japan remains committed to protecting its independence, ensuring the safety of its people, and upholding international law while navigating complex diplomatic and security challenges in the region. Reporting from Tokyo, Japan, this has been Guy Saito, your global citizen correspondent, SMNI News.
Heavy gunfire in Aleppo forced residents to flee as Syrian transitional government forces and the Syrian Democratic Forces exchanged blamed for deadly attacks. Residents are fleeing amid heavy gunfire in the Al-Midan neighborhood, where local media reported 3 civilians killed and several others injured, including 2 children. 9 agricultural workers were also hurt, according to the Aleppo Agriculture Directorate. The SDF countered that artillery shelling by government forces in Sheikh Maksud and Ashrafi killed 1 civilian and injured 17 others, accusing government factions of targeting homes. The violence follows talks between both sides on the so-called March Agreement signed last year to integrate Kurdish-administered civil and military institutions into Syria's state framework by the end of 2025. Syria's transitional government, in power since December 2024, pledged an inclusive administration and vowed to investigate violence against minority communities and hold perpetrators accountable. As Aleppo braces for further clashes, both sides face mounting pressure to implement the March Agreement and restore stability to the city. Philippine Agriculture Secretary Francisco Chu Laurel Jr. admitted that the increase in the prices of basic commodities in December was the result of the combined effects of holiday demand and lack of supply caused by severe weather. Sheena Torno reports.
Based on the report of the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA, the country's inflation rate accelerated to 1.8% in December 2025. This is higher compared to the 1.5% inflation recorded in November of the same year. Food inflation rose to 1.2%, and even the poorest families once again experienced an increase in food prices at 1.1% inflation. In a statement, Department of Agriculture Secretary Francisco Chu Laurel Jr. admitted that the prices of basic commodities increased over the past year. According to the Secretary, this was due to the impact of damaged crops caused by bad weather, supply problems, and strong demand during the holiday season. Vegetables, corn, fish, fruits, and bread were among the commodities recording price increases, staples that see higher consumption during Christmas and New Year. Because of this, Laurel assured that the problem affecting food prices in the market will be addressed. The DA will intensify market monitoring, speed up the release of food supply, and boost production. The agency will also strengthen the 20 pesos rice program. Department of Agriculture aims to expand the subsidized rice program to 15 million families by 2026, covering both lower and middle-income households. For God and for my beloved Philippines, this has been Sheena Torno, SMNI News.
When we return, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. calls on newly promoted AFP generals and flag officers to lead with integrity and responsibly manage public resources. And the AFP responds to former Ilocos Sur Governor Chavit Singson, stressing it will remain loyal to the Constitution despite allegations of government corruption. More news after the break.
Madalas ka bang napapasobra sa pag-scroll sa phone mo kahit puro masasamang balita ang nakikita mo? Isipin mo ito. Nakahiga ka na sa kama, nagche-check lang ng phone bago matulog. Tapos, hindi mo na malayan, ilang oras ka na palang nagbabasa at nanonood ng mga balita tungkol sa digmaan, sakuna, politika at lahat ng masasamang nangyayari sa mundo. Nakakaramdam ka na ng kaba at pagod, pero tuloy mo pa rin ang scroll mo. Ang tawag dyan ay doom scrolling. Ito ang habit ng paulit-ulit na pagtingin sa mga negatibo o nakakadepress na content tulad ng digmaan, krimen o problema sa mundo. Nakaka-stress pero hindi mo pa rin mapigilan. Ayon sa isang pag-aaral ng Texas Tech University, ang sobrang konsumo ng masasamang balita ay nauugnay sa pagtaas ng stress, anxiety at pisikal na sintomas gaya ng pagkapagod at sakit ng ulo. Ayon naman sa Harvard Health, ang doom scrolling ay nagpapataas ng fight or flight hormones tulad ng cortisol at adrenaline na nakakapagpabigat ng isip at katawan. Nakakaapekto ito sa iyong mood, tulog at maging sa mental at physical health mo. At kapag naman puro memes at random na content ang pinapanood mo ng sunod-sunod hanggang sa mawalan ka ng gana na mag-isip at gumawa ng iba pang gawain, ang tawag naman dyan ay brain rot. Sa Gen Z at tinatawag na internet culture, ang brain rot ay overconsumption o sobrang tagal na panonood ng paulit-ulit, mababaw, magulo o walang saysay na content online hanggang sa parang manhid na ang utak mo. Kapag nasobrahan, syempre, nakakasama. Nawawalan ka na ng focus, nawawala ang motivation, hirap mag-isip ng malalim, parang lutang o foggy ang utak. Masaya sa simula, pero kapag sobra, napapagod ang isip mo. Nahihirapang mag-concentrate at parang lutang. Mas delikado pa ito sa mga bata dahil ang utak nila ay nasa proseso pa ng pag-develop. Kaya mas malakas ang epekto ng doom scrolling at brain rot sa kanila. Maaaring makaapekto sa pag-aaral, pag-iisip at pakikitungo sa iba. Ang higit sa 4 na oras ng screen time araw-araw sa mga kabataan ay konektado sa 35 to 88% na mas mataas na posibilidad ng depresyon, anxiety at stress. Base ito sa isang malawakang pag-aaral sa Brazil. Kaya, maging balanse. Magpahinga sa screen, magbasa, makipagkwentuhan, magdasal, maging present lagi. Alagaan ang iyong isipan. Kung anong itinatanim sa isipan mo, yun ang lalago.
China has condemned U.S. actions against Venezuela, accusing Washington of violating international law, undermining national sovereignty, and escalating tensions that threaten global stability. Let's find out more from Joy Tabanao.
China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs condemned U.S. legal and military actions involving Venezuela, warning that they infringe on national sovereignty and threaten international order. Speaking at a regular press briefing, Foreign Minister spokesperson Mao Ning said the United States has ignored Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's status as a head of state by pursuing what she described as a domestic prosecution and trial against him.
美方无视委内瑞拉总统马杜罗的国家元首身份，公然在国内法院起诉并进行所谓审判，严重侵犯委内瑞拉的国家主权，严重破坏国际关系的稳定。任何国家都不能将本国的规则凌驾于国际法之上。
She also addressed discussions at the United Nations Security Council, where members met for an emergency session on the possibility of U.S. military action against Venezuela.
昨天，联合国安理会就美国对委内瑞拉发动军事打击召开了紧急会议。中方代表发言强调，军事手段不是解决问题的出路，滥用武力只会导致更大的危机。 中方坚定支持委内瑞拉政府和人民维护主权安全和正当权益，坚定支持地区国家维护拉美和加勒比和平区地位。
Mao stressed that China consistently opposes interference in the internal affairs of the other countries.
中方一贯主张，各国都应当尊重他国人民自主选择的发展道路，遵守国际法及联合国宪章宗旨和原则。 大国尤应带头，没有哪个国家可以充当国际警察，没有哪个国家可以自诩为国际法官。
She said China is willing to work with other nations to uphold international law, oppose what she called the law of the jungle, and jointly safeguard global peace and stability. She also emphasized that China's position remains objective and impartial, guided by respect for sovereignty, international law, and the peaceful resolution of disputes. Joy Debanao, your citizen correspondent reporting for Newsline World.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. on Wednesday called on newly promoted generals and flag officers of the Armed Forces of the Philippines to lead with integrity and responsibly manage public resources. President Catarong reports.
On January 7, the President led the oath-taking ceremony at Malacanang Palace for 37 newly promoted AFP generals and flag officers, along with one commissioned graduate from foreign pre-commissioned training institutions. In his address, President Marcos reaffirmed the government's commitment to the welfare of military personnel, citing the signing of the 6.793 trillion pesos national budget for fiscal year 2026.
This includes the updated base pay schedule, the increased subsistence allowance of our military and uniformed force personnel.
Beyond their role as defenders of the nation, the chief executive emphasized that military leaders also have a duty to safeguard public resources.
More than your role as the protectors of our nation, you must also be among the faithful stewards who guard public resources. Be among those who ensure that every peso translates into capability, preparedness, and integrity.
Congratulating the newly promoted officers, Marcos Jr. said their higher ranks come with greater responsibilities, even as their mission to serve and protect the country remains the same. He noted that stronger leadership and sound judgment are essential amid complex security threats and rising geopolitical tensions. The President also reminded the officers that true leadership is measured by character and example, not by rank alone. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Creseling Catarong, SMNI News.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines responded to the open letter issued by former Ilocos Sur Governor Chavit Singson, stressing that it will remain loyal to the Constitution despite allegations of widespread corruption and injustice in government. This report from Almar Forzuelo.
Former Ilocos Sur Governor Chavit Singson publicly expressed his frustration with the current administration. This comes amid allegations of rampant corruption in government and what he described as political alliances formed to shield the alleged masterminds behind the misuse of public funds. Following this, Singson addressed an open letter to AFP Chief of Staff General Romeo Browner Jr. According to Singson, the alleged corruption committed by some elected officials is already evident to the public and should therefore be condemned. The AFP responded that while it supports the public's call for good governance and anti-corruption efforts, issues involving civilian governance must still go through proper legal channels. The AFP further emphasized that it strictly adheres to its chain of command, which ensures the faithful execution of its constitutional mandate. The AFP also warned that any military personnel who engage in partisan politics or act outside the chain of command undermine the integrity of the institution. For God and my beloved Philippines, Almar Forzuelo, SMNA News.
Up next, a Brazilian woman is arrested in Seoul after allegedly stalking BTS member Jungkook at his home in a case under investigation for violations of South Korea's anti-stalking law. Don't go away, Newsline World will be back.
Maging ligtas, maging handa. Narito ang ilang paalala kung sakaling tumama ang lindol. Maghanda ng emergency kits na may lamang flashlight, pito, first aid kit, tubig at pagkain. Alamin ang emergency exits sa inyong bahay, paaralan o opisina. Habang lumilindol, magtago sa ilalim ng matibay na lamesa upang maprotektahan ang sarili sa mga nahuhulog na bagay. Lumayo sa mga bintana at mabibigat na gamit na maaaring mahulog. Kung ikaw ay nasa labas, lumayo sa mga gusali, puno o poste na maaaring matumba. Kung ikaw ay nagmamaneho, itabi at ihinto ang sasakyan at lumabas. Pagkatapos ng lindol, gamitin ang hagdan sa paglabas ng gusali at huwag gumamit ng elevator. Maging alerto sa aftershocks at manatili sa open space kung kinakailangan. Maging ligtas at maging handa sa anumang sakuna. Ang paalalang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng SMNI.
Ikaw ba ay namomroblema sa taas ng electric bill buwan-buwan? Huwag mag-alala, narito ang ilang paraan upang makatipid sa kuryente. Patayin ang mga ilaw at appliances kapag hindi ginagamit. Sa halip ay gumamit ng natural na liwanag upang makatipid sa kuryente. Tanggalin sa saksakan ang mga appliances kung hindi ginagamit. Iwasan ang paggamit ng maraming appliances ng sabay-sabay. Gumamit ng LED bulbs. Ito ay mas tipid sa kuryente kumpara sa mga incandescent at fluorescent bulbs. Regular na linisin ang mga appliances tulad ng electric fan, aircon vents at refrigerator. Magkaroon ng takdang araw sa isang linggo sa pamamalansya at paglalaba. Gumamit ng energy-efficient appliances. Tandaan, maging wais sa paggamit ng kuryente upang makatipid para mas gumaan ang buhay. Ang paalalang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng SMNI.
A Brazilian woman has been arrested in Seoul after allegedly stalking BTS member Jungkook at his home in a case now under investigation for possible violations of South Korea's anti-stalking law. Meanwhile, Canadian musician Ashley McIsaac is considering legal action after artificial intelligence falsely labeled him a sex offender. The error cost him a live performance. The details from Jane Codita.
South Korean authorities have arrested a Brazilian woman accused of stalking BTS member Jungkook at his residence in Seoul. They said the Brazilian woman, who's in her 30s, was taken into custody after allegedly attempting to enter the home of BTS member Jungkook in Seoul's Yongsan district. The suspect was reportedly apprehended at around 2:50 p.m. on January 4 on suspicion of violating South Korea's anti-stalking law. Authorities said the woman allegedly went to Jungkook's residence, prompting police to respond and make the arrest. No injuries were reported. Police are continuing their investigation to determine the circumstances and whether further charges may be filed. The incident has raised renewed concerns about the safety and privacy of public figures, particularly global K-pop stars who attract intense attention from fans worldwide. A Canadian musician says artificial intelligence has cost him a live performance and damaged his reputation after being incorrectly labeled a sex offender online. Renowned Canadian artist Ashley McIsaac revealed that one of his scheduled shows was cancelled after an AI-generated search result falsely identified him as a sex offender. McIsaac said the inaccurate labels spread quickly online, leading to serious personal and professional consequences. He is now consulting with lawyers and considering legal action against Google, which he says allowed the misinformation to circulate. The musician stressed that the information was completely false and had no factual basis. He warned that the incident highlights the growing risks of relying on artificial intelligence for public information without proper safeguards. The incident has renewed concerns about accountability, accuracy, and the legal responsibilities of tech companies as AI tools become more widely used in news, search, and public profiles. And that's it for today's entertainment news. This has been Jane Cuniter, Global Citizen Correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
The Mexican city of Puebla delighted residents and visitors alike after officially earning a Guinness World Record for unveiling the world's largest Rosca de Reyes, a nearly 6-kilometer-long Three Kings bread prepared and shared during a festive public celebration. Jean Domingo tells us more.
Hundreds of people gathered in Puebla's main square as the massive traditional bread was revealed, drawing cheers and excitement from the crowd, eager to witness and taste the historic creation. Guinness World Records adjudicator Andres Rojas Toledo officially confirmed the milestone, announcing that the record-breaking rosca consisted of 19,010 individual pieces of bread, each measuring about 30 centimeters. He congratulated the city, declaring Puebla officially amazing. The giant rosca was prepared by local bakers using ingredients supplied by the Grand Bodega Company and assembled in the city center as part of the community celebration. Puebla Mayor Jose Shedre joined the celebration, thanking local bakers whose dedication and teamwork made the ambitious project possible. The event coincided with the traditional celebration of the Three Kings on January 6, a significant date in Mexican culture. City officials said the record-breaking rosca not only highlighted Puebla's rich culinary traditions, but also showcased community unity, cultural pride, and the joy of sharing a beloved tradition on a grand scale. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Jean Domingo, SM9 News.
Shenzhen has introduced a robotic guide dog to assist visually impaired commuters using advanced autonomous technology to navigate metro stations safely and efficiently, with plans for wider rollout across China's major metros and airports. Joy Tabanao has the story.
A new robotic guide dog is helping visually impaired passengers navigate Shenzhen Metro, showcasing the city's push for innovative, barrier-free public service. Shenzhen is pioneering a new approach to accessible transportation with the launch of a robotic guide dog designed to assist visually impaired commuters.
我们研发的时候呢，地铁只是我们一个使用场景，但是呢，深圳这座城市，我觉得理念上非常先进，然后深圳地铁呢，在这方面又做得特别好。他们的这个总经理亲自带着他们的这个商务服务人员、客服人员，到处在找，他们主动找到了我们这个产品，然后跟我们一拍即合。 就是从深圳地铁的角度，希望能够把深圳这样一种就是先行先试的这种示范作用能够体现出来，在无障碍服务方面能做得更人性化，更多的这个人文关怀。
The guide dog uses low-speed autonomous driving technology supported by multimodal 3D perception, neural networks, and large-scale models. It detects its surroundings through LiDAR, depth cameras, and ultrasonic sensors.
当然，我们在这个里面还有2个非常关键的技术，就是一个是这个动态障碍物的一键剔除技术，否则扫出来的图是没办法用的。第二个呢，就是重定位技术，因为传统的移动机器人重定位都要回到原点去重定位，那么我们是在任何场景中，它可以马上进行重定位，它保证了这个我们的机器就是从理论走到实际应用，这是我觉得我们这个在这款产品上的一个比较大的技术突破。
In operation, the robotic guide dog prioritizes safety, automatically slowing down or stopping in complex environments.
安全是我们的第一原则。那么，遇到特别复杂的环境，我们首先是让它减速，然后是自动就停下来。那么在这个情况下，它会做等待。如果说它重新再规划路径，就我能不能绕过去？如果这个障碍物不消除，它就会想到我能不能绕过去。如果能绕过去，它会慢慢的从能够行走的通道它绕过去。如果实在绕不过去，它会语音提示这个使用的盲人，就是说你求助路人。
Beyond Shenzhen, Care for Health Med is in talks with metros in Guangzhou, Beijing, Ningbo, and Suzhou, as well as airports including Shenzhen Airport, Capital Airport, and Daxing Airport, with a full rollout expected around the Spring Festival. Joy Tabanao, your citizen correspondent reporting for Newsline World.
World number 1 Arena Baleka launched her Australian Open build-up in emphatic fashion, crushing Spain's Cristina Buxa in just 48 minutes at the Brisbane International, while Kevin Durant knocked down a clutch three-pointer with 1.1 seconds left to lift the Houston Rockets to a 100-97 win over the Phoenix Suns, a victory that carried extra meaning against his former team. Carlo de la Peña for our sports news.
Arena Sabalenka dismantled the world number 50 with a ruthless score 6-0, 6-1 victory, racing through the opening set in just 22 minutes before sealing the match shortly after. The dominant display sent an early warning to her rivals ahead of the Australian Open, which begins on January 18. The Belarusian credited her recent Battle of the Sexes exhibition match against Nick Kyrgios as a valuable tune-up, saying it helped sharpen her competitive edge while drawing more attention to the sport. Sabalenka will next face either Yelena Ostapenko or Sorana Cirstea in the third round and remains on course for a potential quarterfinal rematch with Madison Keys, who beat her in last year's Australian Open final. Keys also advanced in Brisbane with a straight sets win over fellow American McCartney Kessler, admitting she needed time to shake off early rust after receiving a first-round bye. Meanwhile, the men's draw saw major upsets as second seed Alejandro Davidovich Fokina fell to American Brandon Nakashima, while fifth seed Denis Shapovalov was eliminated by Belgian qualifier Rafael Collion. Meanwhile, Kevin Durant finished with 26 points and delivered a decisive 27-foot shot with a game tied, sealing Houston's win in dramatic fashion. After the game, the 15-time All-Star admitted the moment meant more because it came against Phoenix, the team he joined from Brooklyn in 2023 and left following a blockbuster trade last summer. Durant said he did not want to leave the Suns and felt he was kicked out, adding that facing a former team naturally puts a chip on a player's shoulder. The 37-year-old spent 2.5 seasons in Phoenix, earning All-Star honors in both full seasons but falling short of expectations, including a first-round playoff exit in 2024 and missing the postseason last year. Despite the emotions, Durant stressed there was no bitterness towards the Suns players, saying his focus was simply on competing and proving he still has plenty left in the tank. Durant added that once the night ends, his attention quickly shifts forward as Houston continues its push through the season. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Carlo de la Peña bringing you the latest sports news.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the words of the sun. The road to excellence is paved with discipline and corrections. It is love language for the wise. And that's all for this edition of Newsline World. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Angel Pastor. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.